Okay, man. All right. Well, the story of the moment is us getting our rears kicked by equipment and setup. We've just been getting 45 minutes worth of a drubbing by studio setup. And it's kind of the story of your last week or two, isn't it?
Yeah, and it should be the opposite story because the last week has been all this kind of setting up and having things ready to go. And yet, this I mean it is a little bit of a problem of being versatile and having a workflow that's versatile. Is that you then just like, "Oh, I could do that too. I could do that." But then it actually requires you to switch things around. Whereas if you just did one thing,
Right.
then you just figured it out and then that would be it.
I like how that's turned around to be like we've turned it around to a compliment for ourselves. It's because we are multifaceted that we have this problem. It's kind of true, maybe. I heard a term for multifaceted creatives, which was multimodal. I offer that to you.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a compliment. I think that if considering considering where we are in the world, I think that any sane person would be advising to focus, just do
Right,
one thing and do it over and over again until you master that. And that, but you and I are both have a problem with that, so
right.
we're multimodal. So
Or,
it's not an insult, but not necessarily a compliment either.
or maybe not like an effective strategy for getting ahead, but maybe for nurturing the soul. What about that?
Yeah, and maybe yeah, and in the end, like it could be a slower route up the mountain, but maybe once you get there, the multimodal mountain top is more yeah, it's maybe it's a better mountaintop
Well,
and
it's
and
true.
more suited to your exact things.
Yeah, and we talked about this a good amount, but I am really aware, even in the past week or two, how many other skills have to. We've talked about this, but how many other skills have to come in if you're going to get anything out into the world and have people see it. It's like maybe half of it is the creation, but at least half is sort of the business side of it, where you're just like figuring out how to get your music up, how to get your video up, how to get people, how to get a crew to come along and do a shoot, and how to line up all the logistics. And it's just like this endless slog. And you've been talking, I think, just in our conversations throughout the week about how that's sort of it's a weeder. And so if you can, if it's almost like it's like a triathlon or like those American Ninja Warrior things, where if you can make it to the end through the swamp and over the hill and swing through the rings, there's not as many people who there's probably a lot more people who can put a song together than people who have the whatever it takes to get through that obstacle course.
Yeah, yeah. There's a counter argument that nowadays you just put up your phone, and if you're just less perfectionistic about stuff, that you can find your people before you have the stuff. And I think it's probably true. But instead of thinking better and worse, I think there really is a different path that is you do enter the game from a different spot if you've figured a lot of this stuff out. I mean, you know, and I think it's more who we are, or more who I am to set up this stuff and building a studio and being able to do things and invite friends and do things for people. That's very gratifying.
Yeah, and I sort of think I've been thinking about that too lately. There's just like these people who they just have figured out how to turn on their camera and put it up here and just be like, listen, and then the internet loves them and consumes them. And I think a couple things maybe to make myself feel better about it, which is one, um, I don't think that that's what this might just be make myself feel better, but I don't think that's what I want. I don't think I would be happy
Right.
as just like listen guys, hey guy, like I don't think that's me. And two, I also don't think I just can't compete. I don't think on that field. Like if you're young and beautiful and able, and you're just like, you don't care. And it's just like you're digital native, you're social media native, and you're just, that just sort of maybe comes naturally to you and it doesn't to me. Or maybe if you're just kind of a mess talking, or anyway, it's just I don't think it's what I bring to the table. So that's how I'm making myself feel better about it. Is like I don't think that's my path, even if it's a smarter, better, easier, more efficient path.
Yeah, and I'm really convinced that it's not a matter of smarter, more efficient. It is really just a matter of they are slightly different paths, and yeah, just the straight up everything straight to phone is there's something in my programming that's thinking about things in a slightly different way, and so it just put us at a different mountaintop or a different path, a different hike, a different mountain road.
Right. Yep. Yeah, man. Well, so I've got this shoot tomorrow. That's sort of taken up a lot of brain space. And it seems like it's all coming together. But
That's great.
weirdly, I mean, speaking of the squirrel suit from a couple weeks ago, the one thing I have left that I haven't done is the like content preparation of just like making sure I know what I'm going to talk about. But I do want to do that. It's not that I'm just like I'm going to go in. I just somehow I have put that which is in some ways the most meaningful part aside for all the logistical stuff, and I was diving into getting insurance this week. It was just like it's crazy.
Insurance, yeah, that's the separator. If you're a person who can hire a crew and get insurance, you've
Yeah.
become a minority.
Yeah. We know how you meant that. Uh,
In a good
in a good way. No, wait.
yeah.
Strike that from the record.
Oh god.
Um, I I also
Yeah. There are other ways for the minority to be a bad thing. I meant like, just like a minority opinion, like whatever. Oh,
everyone knew what you meant. Everyone knew what you meant. You will never speak on the internet again. Um, I did hire a. I mean, I have this friend that's helping me out that I'm paying to help produce lots of stuff, and I thought that was optional at the time. I had already started planning this shoot, and I sort of was like, oh, this would be so great. She could help me, and she's been unbelievably helpful. And it's just sort of silly when I look back and think I could have possibly pulled off sort of a TV shoot with the crew and even a simple shoot like we're doing without someone in that role is sort of laughable. And already, even with someone in that role, I'm still having to do so much on both. What I'm thinking of is this. It sounds maybe a little bit. What's the word? Highfalutin. There's a better word for that. It's like arrogant. Overdone. Anyway, there's an obvious word for this, but it's like behind the camera and in front of the camera at the same time. You know what I mean? And somehow that's a
yeah.
brain
Yeah, yeah,
split
yeah. Oh
that is
yeah.
so hard. And if I'm going to be on the camera in front of the camera, there's so much to think about on the other side. But that's one huge goal is just to be able to just not worry about that stuff. Just trust that I've got good people in place and, you know, go for
That's
it.
amazing. I have a parallel this weekend. So I have a show next week, and we on Saturdays we get together with this. I guess we're kind of turning into a band at this point. And I've been engineering and recording and performing all at the same time. And so I talked to somebody who's like, oh, I like doing engineering and stuff. And so I was like, oh, why don't you come down? And so just the hope of having somebody just be on the board and just being sure, like it's like, oh, there's an extra mic, let me just do this, and showing them around. All of a sudden it's just like it would just be a totally different world for me to be able to just be one of the performers instead of also the engineer, because it's really it's you don't do either thing nearly well. It's not like you're 50% as good as an engineer and 50% as good as a performer. You're 25% as good at both
Totally.
while you're doing both.
Well, where are you now on your idea to like do a contest and sort of engineer someone's music in town?
I like the idea. I talked about it to a couple of people, and sort of gotten some good feedback. And now it's just a matter of of doing it, there are certain things that I have to figure out. Like, how do I? Is this kind of like an introduction of this new studio space to the community? This is part of what I think this could do, is to say, hey, come down to this studio and do this. Um, as a way of letting more people than just them know that this is a place that exists. And so it's making my brain have to fill in a lot of blanks about how I'm going to articulate that and how I'm going to offer it and how and all that stuff. But it's still, I think it's leading me in a good direction in terms of having to figure that stuff out so that I can put the word out.
Yeah. And it is kind of that split we talked about then you'd be behind the mixing board instead of in front of the mics. Or are you envisioning that you would maybe participate as well?
Well, I think that I think that I'll probably be, if somebody's coming in and I hear something and pick up a guitar, play some keyboards, but I also think that I'm going to have other musicians come down and have it be a real community project. Like, how can we make this song the absolute best thing it could possibly be? It's really sort of an exciting and turn it into a community effort. And yeah, it's a question that I have of like, is this going to turn me more into a behind the scenes person when actually I want to be a person who, I got shit to say. I want to be out there myself. And I'm starting to come to peace with that. I think that I think I'm never going to stop wanting to put myself out there. I don't think I'll ever fade into the background, which was a fear. And it was sort of stopping me from doing this, but I think it makes sense because I have a big part, if not more than 50% of my artistic diet being helping others, help bringing out other people's genius, recognizing what's great about them, and sort of helping them get there, and highlighting it and bragging about these brilliant people. That's a big part of my DNA, and I want to do that. The fear of then me slipping into the background is starting to I'm starting to feel okay about. That's not going to
Nice.
happen. That I'm always going to put myself in the mix as well,
Hey,
but
when
for
you
my own
shine this
stuff.
bright, it's hard not to have it shine a little bit bright.
I got a lot of sunshine to throw around.
There you go. Well, I think that's really true. I think you do have sunshine, and I think that does sort of sync with your personality. I think and maybe actually maybe you'll, in a way, you'll shine brightest in that role. I think that is true in some ways, right? Like, just people in general who are looking to shine spotlights on others. I think it somehow does shine a lot back on them. It's probably the Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's the fear. I mean, a little bit is that you produce a great record for somebody, and then 2 weeks later you're like, I made this thing, and then the fear is somebody's be like, look, buddy, stick to producing other people. You belong behind the curtain. That's the fear, that I will shine brightest in that capacity. Um, but but to take your point, I think it's a better way to shine. But I think it's also okay to still want to want to uh, present yourself as an artist as well. Um, yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of weird psychology or cultural zeitgeist about this whole notion of who gets to who gets to put themselves out there and who doesn't, and how much of it is just in my head. But I think it's a thing out there. Somebody could probably tell me
Yeah.
something about it.
It's cool. I mean, maybe it's sort of what we talked about, that like if you're moving the ball forward, if you're trying to create, whether it's your own art, whether it's community, whether it's putting shine on people, that's at least that's moving. You're in the game. Your legs are moving. You're throwing the ball and whatnot, and that's anything in that realm is probably better than just watching the game on your couch with a drink. Um, so maybe that's the way we should look at it. I mean, we've talked about that a lot. I've got when we stumbled on that thing, it says more, when we were like, I want to do more doing, less not doing. I wrote that up and printed that on my wall. It's right over there. More doing, less not doing. And I like that. Just like, be a doer, get in there, And that's cool. It's a cool idea. You're excited about it. It'll be a good way to build community. Are you envisioning more like I was sort of thinking there would be a band that would come in, but I could see how it'd be more inspiring to think that there's someone with a song, and then the job
Yeah,
is produce the
that's the
song.
idea. Is just to have people, like, you have a song that you were hoping to get produced a little bit more, and just have them record a thing on their phone and thinking it's probably going to go out to just a singer songwriter, and then we listen to it and just have a couple of my musician buddies listen along and be like, okay, what could we possibly do? And then once we pick the winner, then we talk to that person and then throw them a bunch of options. But we have all these musicians that we can work with and we can pull things in, really just like, how can we take this one song and just really make it
I
just
love
great?
it. And you know what hadn't occurred to me? Uh, are you planning to do a bunch of video of the process? That would be so cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing, that also to share the load, because that's really hard. It's really hard to focus on that video piece at the same time. So part of what I was thinking was take asking the winner, do you have any friends that would be willing to come while you're doing this, just with their phone? We have some cameras just to sort of like
So
shoot
cool.
video of the process, and so that, at some point
Oh
we could
man, I
create a
would
little
geek
video
out
of the
on that.
process.
For some reason, when I think back to Erykah Badu's original hits, this was in the 90s or whatever, but it was like, oh, I can't even, on and on and on and on, on and on and
Oh, no,
on and
no,
on.
yeah, I know
I don't
that
know
song.
why
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
tried to sing it in her falsetto, and I don't even have that. Oh, you know this song, you know this hit?
This song is,
He's like dying. Oh,
yeah, yeah, I know that one.
that
Erykah
was
Badu, right?
amazing. We all love that song. Um, No, so yeah, oh, on and on and on and on. So I remember reading something then. It was like she was just, she was nobody at the time, right? I mean, she was somebody, but she was nobody famous. And she went into
She
some
was
guy's.
nobody.
She went into some guy's studio, which was
She
like,
didn't exist. She was she was completely not even in the realm, and
it's an
then
amazing story.
he
No,
pops into the studio.
so I don't know how much she had written, but that's part of the point, is that I always wondered this. But I read something where it's like she just went into the guy's studio. The guy wasn't, he was nobody too. He didn't exist either. No, he was just a guy with a bedroom studio. So here she is. She's just a singer. She has some ideas, and she goes to the guy. He has a bedroom studio, and they end up putting this amazing record out. That first record of hers was unbelievable, and he had guys coming by. But you can imagine for her as a singer. I mean, you're a struggling singer, so you go into someone's bedroom studio, but it's not like you think you're going to, Fantasy Records or something. You're just like, oh boy, you're hustling. So maybe you're not even stressed about it. You're just hustling. But anyway, they did this incredible thing. They had some guy come in and play bass, and it has that really distinctive ba-dum, dum, 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 which is a big part of it. So I always found myself wondering, what was the process? How much was written? Did she just have an idea, or did they just start playing and she was just started singing to what was playing? And then the entire creation of that song, which was kind of the hit that led to her whole career, was in that moment. That's where it happened. Or was it that she was like, I have this song and I have this image and it's going to have a bass, but probably the whole creation of it was right there. So anyway, that's my long-winded story saying, I
No,
think that would be
that
so cool to just watch how a song goes from whatever inceptional place it is to fully fleshed out. And also that would give you some it would shine back on you, because if they had done that in Erykah Badu's thing, then you might be like, oh, that producer so and so. But as it stands, we don't even know who that dude is. I mean, someone does. I don't.
Erykah probably doesn't even remember his name or her name. But but let me just say the thing about there wasn't some fantasy record studio, that the bedroom studio though comes with, I think, maybe more benefits than the Fantasyland studios, because of the fact that you're going in. I think a lot of people, if you were to suddenly go to Electric Ladyland, you'd probably be like, oh my god, I gotta make a hit, I gotta be the best, and then you're like, like,
Yeah, you
who
probably
knows how
force
you,
it.
you behave it.
You
Yeah, whereas
overdo it.
when
Yeah.
if somebody's here, it's just like there's no BS. It's just like, okay, let's figure this out, and it
But
feels
you're
much
also
more like a
past.
playground.
That's true, but that's true. You might have the perfect middle because you're also past the level. It's not like someone has to edge around the bed to get to the microphone. You know what I mean? That's a
Yeah,
different level of confidence training.
yeah, yeah,
No, I think you
and
might have the
like,
perfect setup.
well, I agree. I've been setting it up, and like the fact that this room is now this spacious place for sort of like uh, not overly loud instruments, and then there's a room that has for loud instruments. It really does cover
Are you?
all the
Can you show us?
bases.
Do you have a little camera where you can show us the setup?
Well, I wonder. Let me see. Let me see. Let me try. If I say so GoPro webcam. So what if I do this?
This is this. See,
I
this is
say,
a live
this is
moment of equipment struggle.
new technology.
Although this is not really going to be struggle. It's either going to work or it's not. He's frozen. While you're frozen, I will remove you. Hello, everyone. You're still frozen.
Hello.
Still frozen. I'm just kind of excited to be able to remove you. Now it's me. Hello. I'm happy to have you all here today.
Well,
Yeah, you're frozen. I think this has not worked, given that you are completely frozen. So, frozen Feff, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today. You're now gone. All right, everybody. I'll see you later.